The first rays of morning sunlight spilled across the narrow streets of Istanbul, turning the old stone buildings into shades of gold. The city had already awakened. Cafes filled with quiet conversations, ferries crossed the Bosphorus, and people hurried toward another busy day. Barış Arduç walked slowly through a peaceful neighborhood, enjoying a rare moment away from cameras and crowded schedules. He carried a notebook in one hand, hoping to find inspiration for an upcoming creative project. Sometimes the best ideas appeared during ordinary walks, far from the spotlight. At the same time, Elçin Sangu stepped out of a nearby bookstore with a small collection of novels tucked under her arm. Reading had always been her favorite escape. Every story reminded her that simple moments often carried the greatest emotions. Neither of them knew that this ordinary morning was about to become unforgettable. A gentle breeze swept through the street, carrying the scent of fresh coffee and blooming flowers from a nearby garden. As Barış turned a corner, Elçin looked up from the books she was arranging in her hands. For just a second, their eyes met. It wasn't a dramatic movie scene. There was no music, no crowd stopping to watch, and no magical effects. It was simply one quiet glance between two people who happened to be in the same place at the same time. Yet something about that moment felt different. Both smiled politely before continuing on their way. After only a few steps, Barış paused. He wasn't sure why, but something encouraged him to turn around. At the exact same moment, Elçin also looked back. Their eyes met once again. This time, they laughed softly at the unexpected coincidence. "Looks like we had the same idea," Barış said with a warm smile. "I guess we did," Elçin replied. The conversation lasted less than a minute. They exchanged a few friendly words about the beautiful weather, the peaceful neighborhood, and the charming bookstore nearby. Before leaving, Barış wished her a wonderful day. "You too," Elçin answered. It seemed like the end of a pleasant encounter. But destiny often enjoys surprising people. Several days later, both arrived independently at a charity event supporting children's education. Neither had known the other would be attending. When Barış entered the hall, he immediately noticed a familiar face across the room. Elçin smiled as she recognized him. "What are the chances?" she asked. "Higher than I expected," Barış replied with a laugh. The event encouraged guests to work together in small volunteer groups. By coincidence, their names appeared on the same team. Throughout the afternoon, they helped organize books, prepared activity spaces for children, and shared conversations between tasks. They quickly discovered something important. Both valued kindness more than attention. Both believed success meant little unless it could inspire others. Both enjoyed simple moments more than glamorous events. Hours passed so naturally that neither noticed how quickly the afternoon disappeared. As the event ended, they walked toward the exit together. The evening sky glowed orange over Istanbul. "It's been a really good day," Elçin said. "It has," Barış agreed. "Sometimes the best plans are the ones we never planned." She nodded. "I couldn't agree more." Before saying goodbye, Barış hesitated for a brief second. "Maybe we could meet again sometime. Just for coffee." Elçin smiled. "I'd like that." A few days later, they met at a quiet cafe overlooking the Bosphorus. There were no interviews. No cameras. No reporters. Just two people talking about books, films, travel, music, family traditions, and childhood memories. Conversation flowed effortlessly. They discovered favorite places around Istanbul. They shared funny stories from early auditions. They laughed about embarrassing moments on film sets. Most importantly, they listened carefully whenever the other spoke. Respect grew before anything else. As the evening came to an end, neither wanted to rush home. Instead, they walked along the waterfront while city lights reflected across the calm water. The sound of distant ferries blended with soft evening conversations from nearby cafes. For a while, neither spoke. The silence wasn't uncomfortable. It felt peaceful. Sometimes silence says more than words. Finally, Elsin looked toward the skyline. Do you ever think life changes because of one tiny decision? Barış smiled. Like turning around on a quiet street? She laughed. Exactly. He looked toward the water. I think life is full of moments that seem ordinary while they're happening. And later? Later, we realize they changed everything. Neither claimed to know what the future would bring. Friendship? A lasting partnership? Or simply a memorable chapter? No one could predict tomorrow. But both understood one thing. That first glance had created a story worth remembering. As they reached the end of the promenade, the city lights shimmered behind them, and the night air carried a quiet sense of possibility. Without realizing it, two separate journeys had begun to move in the same direction. And somewhere deep inside their hearts, both wondered whether one simple look could truly become the beginning of an unforgettable love story. The days that followed their evening walk seemed to move a little faster than usual. Neither Barış nor Elsin tried to force another meeting, yet life kept placing opportunities in their path. One afternoon, Barış sent a simple message. I found the book you mentioned. You were right, it's a wonderful read. A few minutes later, Elsin replied. I'm glad you liked it. Next time, I'll recommend another one. The conversation was brief, but it marked the beginning of a comfortable rhythm. They exchanged thoughts about books, films, music, and places they hoped to visit someday. There was no pressure to impress one another. Every message felt honest and effortless. A week later, they met again at a quiet cafe overlooking the Bosphorus. The city buzzed around them, but inside the cafe everything felt calm. So, Elsin asked with a smile, what did you think of the ending? Barış laughed softly. I kept thinking about it for 2 days. That's the sign of a good story. I knew you'd say that. Their conversation drifted from literature to travel, then to childhood memories. Barış shared stories about spending time outdoors as a boy, while Elsin spoke warmly about family traditions that had shaped her life. The hours passed almost unnoticed. As they left the cafe, a light rain began to fall. Instead of rushing for shelter, they walked slowly beneath the same umbrella, enjoying the refreshing weather. I've always liked rainy afternoons, Elsin said. They make the city feel quieter, Barış replied. And somehow more beautiful. I was thinking exactly the same thing. They exchanged amused glances. It seemed they often discovered they viewed the world in similar ways. Over the following weeks, they crossed paths more frequently during professional events. Sometimes they attended charity programs. Other times they met at industry gatherings where actors, directors, and writers shared ideas about future projects. Despite the busy atmosphere, they always found a few moments to catch up. How's your latest project going? Elsin asked one evening. It's challenging, Barış admitted. But I'm learning something new every day. I think that's the best kind of project. What about you? I'm enjoying every step. There's always something new to discover. Their conversations were never about fame. Instead, they focused on growth, creativity, and finding meaning in the work they loved. One weekend, Barış suggested visiting an art exhibition that had recently opened in Istanbul. I've heard it's worth seeing, he said. I've been meaning to go, Elsin replied. Let's do it. The gallery was filled with paintings inspired by nature, history, and everyday life. They paused in front of one large canvas showing a peaceful shoreline at sunset. It's beautiful, Elsin whispered. Barış studied the painting for a moment. I like how it tells a story without using words. She smiled. Sometimes silence can be the strongest storyteller. He nodded. Exactly. As they continued through the exhibition, they realized how often they appreciated the same details, the colors in a painting, the emotions behind a photograph, or the quiet message hidden inside a simple piece of art. After leaving the gallery, they wandered through nearby streets lined with small cafes and flower shops. The afternoon sunlight created long shadows across the old stone roads. A street musician began playing a gentle melody on a violin. Without saying anything, both slowed their steps to listen. When the song ended, Barış applauded with a smile. Music has a way of freezing time. It really does, Elçin agreed. They continued walking until they reached a park overlooking the city. Families laughed together, children played nearby, and birds circled above the trees. Watching the peaceful scene, Elçin said quietly, "You know what I like most about days like this?" "What?" "They remind us that happiness doesn't always come from extraordinary moments." Barış looked across the park before answering. "Sometimes it comes from simply sharing ordinary ones." Their friendship continued to grow through moments just like these. There were movie recommendations, morning coffee conversations, long walks through quiet neighborhoods, friendly debates about favorite directors and novels. Each meeting revealed another layer of trust. Neither rushed to define what they shared. There was comfort in allowing the connection to develop naturally. One evening, after finishing a community event, they stood near the waterfront watching the sunset. Golden light reflected across the Bosphorus while ferries moved slowly through the water. Barış smiled. "Do you remember the first day we met?" Elçin laughed. "The bookstore? And the second time at the charity event. It still feels like an incredible coincidence." "Maybe," Barış said thoughtfully. "Or maybe life has its own way of introducing people at exactly the right moment." Elçin remained silent for a second before replying. "I like that thought." As darkness settled over Istanbul, the city lights began to sparkle across the shoreline. Neither of them realized how much their lives had already changed since that first unexpected glance. What had started as a brief meeting between strangers had slowly become a friendship built on kindness, respect, shared dreams, and countless meaningful conversations. And although neither spoke the words aloud, both quietly wondered if this beautiful friendship might someday become something even more unforgettable.